Okay. Ooh,
Hello.
you got a lot of noise at the back of your.
All right. Let me see if it had picked up a wrong. It has.
Is that better?
Say something again?
Is that better?
Yeah. Well, I can hear you. We've done that joke already today, haven't we?
Do that every day. Right. What can we see?
I might adjust my camera slightly. My head is very large in there. Anne is just making fun of me, saying I've got a large head.
Yeah, I was just it, but I thought, no,
Yeah, she
let's
beat
just,
to it.
yeah. All right.
You're both not very nice people, I would say.
No.
You're both not very nice people.
No. That's what you attract into your life.
Right, interestingly, where has the... might still have some work to do on the webinar software. Because the chat has disappeared. It's that now. It's very weird. Yeah, we've got some work to do on that one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, whether that's ready for Wednesday or not, I'm going to say we might need some more testing on it.
Okay. All right. Seems like the market hasn't really reacted negatively on the fact that China said Trump was a big fat liar, and
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? You would have thought, what does that tell us? That tells us more people that just want the market to go up at the moment and down.
yeah, well, our indicator is saying the opposite. So I would say that there is a lot of shorts being closed.
Yeah.
Because I don't really see anything that... I'm just scrolling through the media, seeing if there's anything.
Amazon and
Sharp
Nvidia say
dropping home sales. What is that about? Oh, 5.9%. Right. stocks gain. China says not in trade talk with US.
Yes, I have just seen that.
Yeah, that makes absolutely no sense. I might just today actually bring up that that matrix of the where the PE and earnings per share for S&P 500.
Oh, you found it.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Right now, I am.
Okay, so for anyone who's online now, then we are currently testing out a new webinar system that actually I've just suddenly realised we don't actually know whether it's even, well, it is working because I can see it. I've actually got us online on one of the windows myself, but it's interesting to see how long it goes on for and whether it causes us a problem or not. If we have problems, we're going to, I put a link in one of the messages. We'll just carry on YouTube. So if we have a problem, it will be something to do with the platform, I would guess. And we will just carry on as if nothing happened on YouTube. Or you can go over there as well now. It would be useful if people could just put a message in to say whether they can hear us or not. In fact, I might even put a message in so I can hear myself. Yeah, because I think there's about a 10-second gap between us speaking and it going out, which is always there from YouTube.
Yeah. Well, Bent is on. He's saying hello. Can you see that in your chat?
No.
All right. Because I can see it at the restream chat.
Ah, that means he's on YouTube.
Okay.
So we'll just have to keep an eye on both of those.
Yeah.
And I will also keep an eye on... okay, a load of people have added messages that the system's throwing an error saying they haven't got access to send messages. So everyone, thank you for putting your messages in. It's basically my fault that we can't see your messages on there. Just wondering whether I can fix that very, very quickly while Hans talks about something. What do you think about Tesla?
Well, I actually love it. I have come to love it, and I have seen the light. Elon Musk is my new messiah, and I'm a fan. What can I say?
I think that's enough.
There's enough lying for one day.
Yeah, exactly. Default access level. Oh, yeah, that'll do. Yeah. Okay, I can see exactly what's going on. That's a good bit of testing, isn't it? But luckily, I think that fixes it. While we're not on, I will just come off with my test user. Yeah, so I think if people could just try and type in a message again, that would be really, really useful. I made a change on the security. Ah, Jespers. Yep, I can see Jespers on there. Okay. All right. I think what we may well do then is move across to YouTube, because for some reason the chats aren't working correctly, which is interesting. Okay, so if guys, if you're happy just to listen to us waffle on about the markets and trading view and things like that, and not ask questions, then absolutely fine. Just you can go on. Yeah, you can watch us on the platform. If you want to ask some questions, then YouTube's the place to be at the moment. As I say, this was an initial test to see how we got on with this, and we're getting some messages through and some messages not. So I'll need to look into that in the morning. I've got somewhere around 15 to 20 messages just saying that the system's throwing an error. So I can see what's going on. I'll just diagnose that and we'll work it out. So on YouTube, we're live as well. We've got quite a few people coming across now, so great. Good evening.
I can see Glenn is writing that messages are not working, but
yeah,
you know that. Thank you, Glenn. And also, hello and good evening to you. Look forward to hearing about TradingView in my stock scanner. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, shall we start? I'll share my screen very quickly. It is 6:01, so we're ready to go.
Yep.
Okay. All right. What are we here for? What the hell is going on out there? That's what we're here to look at, and also just talk about the new feature that we dropped out there today. So very quickly, we've got quite a few of us on so far. We will go on the introduction. Who we are? We are My Stock Scanner. I'm Liam. I'm the what am I in charge of? Development. That's pretty much it, isn't it? Just making sure the lights are still on and working and everything, and occasionally making comments when I have time on what's going on in the market. So it's my responsibility for things like our forum not working just now. So that's my fault. Hans?
Yeah, my name is Hans Ulrich. I am doing a lot of the analysis and the morning piece and the videos and stuff. I'm basically just annoying Liam all day long when I find some golden nuggets of wisdom, and then he shoots them down, and then if it comes through his thorough filter, then you get to see it in the Facebook and the forum.
Yeah, the highlight of my day is when Hans phones up and says, "I've got this really good idea." And,
yeah, true. So we are the jolly two grumpy old men.
Yes, basically. So that's it very quickly. Most of you guys who are on today, you've been with us for quite a while, so we've got some new users on as well. We had quite a few over the last week on the Easter offer, so welcome to you guys. We are going to very quickly today go over the new TradingView feature that we put in today. We'll show you very quickly how it all fits together on the platform, where it works, and those sort of things. What we'll do is we'll have probably a slightly longer version of it in a week or two, where we'll just focus on TradingView and what it can do on the system and how you save things and so on. We might even get Hans to do a 10-minute video tomorrow, maybe, just on that quickly. And then we'll go on to really the main event today, which is talking about the tariffs, their effects on the market so far, and basically where are some ideas of where we can put our money.
Yeah, Glenn is asking, he's saying US market is up quite well today. What are the good news? Glenn, I'm sure the good news is that China is calling Trump a big fat liar and that the trade war is going on 100% full speed ahead, and market just love it. No, we'll get to that later, but I think a lot of shorts are being closed these days. But let's see what happens.
Yeah. On to the first part, TradingView. We have promised it for absolutely ages, as quite a few people reminded me, but it's been a bit of a labour of love in a number of ways to get it onto the system. We've got about, just being very technical, we've got about 4 or 5 branches of development going on at the moment. And just juggling those around can be a little bit frustrating sometimes, but it's basically like a big game of, this is 5D chess, not 4D chess that you see sort of certain people in the States playing.
You should start your own trade war.
I could do, yeah. I know.
Are you there, Liam?
I think I've won the last 2.
Oh, you just froze for a second.
Yeah, I think we've lost the actual trading competitions, if we don't call them wars. Haven't I won those?
I think we should move on. We don't have time for this today.
Okay, he's obviously not going to bait on that one. So if we go into, let's choose a stock, small one in Denmark that some people might have heard of, Novo Nordisk. So with the trading view, we now have a extra tab on the system. Just wait for the system to catch up with us. Called Trading View. We will replace the TPI chart option at some stage.
Just remove the hours pictures.
Yeah. Sounds good. We will remove the TPI chart and include a TPI indicator on the platform at some stage in the next few weeks. The Trading View documentation to implement this has been one of the reasons why it's taken so long to get the thing implemented. It's either very, very high level saying, yeah, this is what you can do with Trading View, or it's really, really low level saying these are what the individual calls do to when this is what you can do with the actual coding. But there's nothing that links the two together. So working these things out is actually a bit of a labor of love. But effectively, what we see is we've got the Trading View package in here. We have, if you're familiar with Trading View, we have standard button bars down the left-hand side. So pretty much everything that you'd expect on the system, you're going to see on the left-hand side for annotations, for line drawing, for regression channels, for working out the distance calculators and measurement tools over there. So we can do all the stuff you normally do. Any annotations that go on a particular stock will stay with that stock. They get saved every 5 seconds or so, and also we exit to go to another.
Maybe just remember to mention, Liam, that the first time they set up their chart, they need to save it as a up there in the right
there's
corner.
a layout. So effectively it's what we'll do, so this is the first cut of what we're doing, and what we'll do, we'll use it for a few weeks and then see what people think, see what extras people want out of it. So Trading View, they have certain ways that automate things like the layouts and saving the layouts for you. I've taken more of a manual approach at the moment. So if you have something, make a change. So we'll take an indicator out and we might add another indicator in there. Let's do some Bollinger Bands. So we can see the bands have all gone in here. We've got the ATR still. And now I can save that. And that means that any other stock that we go into, it will follow us across there. If we go into Novozymes, we should get the Trading View layout with the Bollinger Bands for Novonesis or Novozymes, and also the ATR in there. So setting up your layouts, you can have as many layouts as you want in there. I've got a couple of test ones at the moment. So every time you change it, then you will see that you have the save option up here, and that will save it so that it gets applied to every single layout or every single stock you go into in the future. I think Trading View stores the last one, so that next time you go into it, it gives you that one as well, even though you haven't saved anything. If we want that functionality, I can do that. It's just we'll spend a couple of weeks just playing with it and getting your guys' feedback, and then we'll see where we are there and implement whatever we need to. There are about 120 indicators on there, so all the standard basic ones that you would expect to see. We can add some more on. It's painful, but once I've gone through the TPI, which I've pretty much done, to be honest, then it should be pretty simple to do the rest of it. So if you've got indicators that you want to add, I know Rasmus and a few others have already said, can we add in the market timer ribbon that we had before? Is that Lars asking for something?
Let's see, on market screen there's some default lines marking significant support and resistance areas. I think he is asking if we can do something like that.
We'll have a look. If you've got requirements, we can certainly talk about them, and we'll see if we can add them. There's no reason why we can't add pretty much anything on there. We the system doesn't, or the TradingView implementation that we've got that isn't on the TradingView platform doesn't use PineScript, which is their standard scripts for creating indicators and those sort of things. So we have to use what's called JavaScript, which is a fairly standard language out there to do the same thing. So that's the only caveat. That it takes, depending on the complexity of the indicator, it could take half a day to day and a half to implement any of these things. But we'll get to them as quickly as possible. Also, I know Daniel has asked things like, can we have resolutions going down further than a day, down to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that? Then that can be done. We need to look at that in the future. We've got a project planned for bringing in real-time data, and that will be part of that. To bring in that sort of granular level of detail. We have access to certainly the 5-minute data out there and tick data that we can get. It's just a question of how much data we store and how easy it is to get to it. So if that's a requirement for people, then great. To be honest, if you're going down to that sort of level, you're probably quite sophisticated in the way you trade. You may actually just carry on using a TradingView account of your own anyway, just for the more advanced stuff. And it may be that we don't actually need that sort of granular level of detail that you want. So we'll play that one by ear. We'll see how we go for the next 2 to 4 weeks and see what people ask for, and then we'll put it all in the project plan. That's it very quickly on TradingView. Anything to add?
I'll make a video. I think I have time to make it tomorrow. Spend just 10-15 minutes for all fairly new TradingView users, or ones that are used to using the free version. There's a bit more, so there's a bit more stuff available here from the normal payment version that we have here in TradingView, in MyStockScanner.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
I didn't realize it refreshed like that, but you learn something new every day. Right, PowerPoint. And then on to, I don't actually know why that's come up. Where's the other one? There we are. That's better. On to the main topic of today. Tariffs. Quick overview on what's going on. We had Liberation Day on the 2nd of April, which is when, we should have flags for that bit, shouldn't we? Basically, Liberation Day was billed as the great day where America's going to start turning itself around and make itself great again. We probably have fairly different ideas over here on what the actual impact is, but for those of you who've been living under a rock for the last couple of weeks, Trump has put massive tariffs on pretty much everyone, including an island full of penguins and no humans on it. And he did it all on this nice little card that
was probably produced by ChatGPT.
Well, the people have actually said there's evidence behind it that yes, it was. Which is a bit scary, but actually I probably trust ChatGPT better than some of the maths that came out of it in the first place. So effectively the major trading partners had the highest tariffs against them, and everyone else that didn't, that maybe, I don't know, Trump and co couldn't spell their name or something like that, they just had 10% tariffs on it after that. So that's the UK actually. So there is a bonus from Brexit at the end of the day. A quick chart, because it's nice and simple to see the chart. The largest trading partners, 4 largest trading partners for the US, Mexico, Canada, China, and the EU, and the rest of the world is just under 50% of imports into the US. So that is what the US are playing with at the moment. Just had another question in very quickly from Christian. We will have, that's one of the things that Hans will go over in a video, and we'll put that in there, and we'll no doubt come back and revisit this over the next couple of weeks as we answer more and more questions. So effectively from US trade, then they put tariffs on pretty much everything, and the effects on that Hans is going to talk about.
Yes. a lot. I heard someone saying that Liberation Day was actually that was the day they started to liberate us from our money. And that is something about, I think on the next slide, you actually have the effect on the different markets, don't
Yep.
you? I'm not, is that from today or?
That
I'm
is
not even
from,
sure about.
yeah, that is today.
Okay, cool. Well, when we decided on this topic for tonight and kind of looked at each other and said, what the hell is going on in the market? It's a hard topic because where do you start? It's such a massive thing. Those of you thinking, why all this tariff stuff from Trump? I don't know if you know the story behind it, but it's both sad and depressing and all sorts of other frustrating stuff. But basically, Trump have had a thing with China for years. And when he entered, I think it was the first time in the White House, he asked his son-in-law to find some professor that could support. That is fairly normal, that you have a view of the world and then you find some professors, some maybe some from business life that can come in and support you. But they found a guy called Peter Navarro on Amazon because he wrote a book called Death by China. And Peter Navarro is a big fan of tariffs. And he is supported by a very well-known, world-renowned economist called Ron Vara, which it has turned out that is just Peter Navarro that has shifted the letters in his name around. And that is the theoretical support for this tariff here. Tariffs have been used a number of times over history, and they can make sense. It's not that is absolutely stupid to make use tariffs. You can if you have a specific industry that you want to support. Trump did it in the first term. Biden continued it on, for instance, electrical vehicles, EVs. They put, I think it's 100% tariff on EVs, simply to protect the EV market in United States. So it can make sense. It has been used all through time. The thing is that Trump is often mentioning an old president, I can't recall his name, back from the 1800s, that were a big fan of tariffs and used them. He later denounced them and said it was stupid, but that is one of the presidents Trump is using for justifying this. And what he said was there are basically three things you can use tariffs for. You can use them to balance out trade and say, okay, we want that. And that is what Trump is saying a lot about. I want to have a more balanced import-export towards different countries. You normally don't do it towards the entire world at once, but that is Trump. So you can do it to balance your trade. You can also do it, number two, as an income. And to many Americans' surprise, Trump actually admitted yesterday that, yes, when they put tariff on Chinese goods, it ends up in the normal pricing for the consumers in the United States. So they get more expensive, the goods. So you can use it for income. And Trump is also doing that because he just made a big tax plan where they are cutting taxes for around $600 billion a year. So they need to cover that somehow because, well, they don't have an infinite amount of money. Well, they actually do, but they can print some, but it's not good. So they need those $600 billion, and they are planning on getting them from tariffs. That's a second thing. And then you can use it for some sort of retaliation or to show a power. Like, for instance, when was it Bolivia that didn't want to receive some immigrants that Trump sent out? He just said, all right, we'll put, was it 50 or 100% extra tariff on all of your goods. And they quickly said, all right, we'll take the immigrants. So it can be used as some sort of show of power. The thing is, you can't do all three of them. You can only pick one, because if you say, okay, we have a big hole in our budget, we need this income, then you need the tariffs to go on, because that is how you get your income. you can't at the same time say, okay, let's negotiate a more fair trade agreement, because then you would have to lower the tariffs if the other country were playing ball here and actually were negotiating. And then you would get your number 2 point served, but you would lack the money in your budget. And so the thing is that Trump is trying to use tariffs for everything. And that's not possible. It's simply, it's working in different directions. So you're destroying the system.
And it's not even that, is it? I mean, the tariffs used to work in the 18th century, 19th century, when all your imports, all of your imports generally done, well, you didn't really import anything to make it. You produced a good out of materials in your country, and then you might have exported it out. Therefore, that sort of works. But if actually all of your materials come from, or virtually all your materials come from a foreign country, then putting tariffs on that country and having a trade war with them actually shoots yourself in the foot.
Definitely. And Glenn is saying here, the US tariffs is saying it's just one massive tax increase on the poor and middle class. And I completely agree, Glenn, because the thing is that if you have, if you compare two different people into US citizens, and one is making $50,000 a year and the other is making $5 million a year, and you raise the grocery prices, just the normal stuff, food, some gasoline, some whatever, heating, if you raise all those costs by 10%, then the guy making $50,000 a year might already be spending the entire income on all the necessities of life. So a 10% increase will be felt massively in their budget. Whereas if you are making $5 million a year, a 10% increase will barely be noticed. So I agree with you, Glenn. It is one big tax increase on lower and middle income. As you say, if they started to actually tax the rich, the absolutely most wealthy people, then there probably wouldn't be as much of a problem. The funny thing is that the time that the Republicans often refer to as back to the golden age and back, when you ask them, they want to make America great again. Okay, when was it great? And they often mention the 50s and 60s, and that was when they were really booming. At that point, at some point in that time span, they have more than 50% in tax rate. More than 80% in tax rate. So they were basically taking all the wealthy people's money, and that is what they're referring to as the golden age.
So they were basically French, because the French have got huge taxes on the richer.
Yeah. Well, and the thing with this, and you can see that in our day-to-day Facebook group, this is a very hard balancing act, because on one point we basically just want to talk finance and investing. However, the way Trump is going about it, we cannot completely rule out talking about politics, because it is just intertwined in a way where I'm really trying to keep that balance, and I do apologize sometimes when I delete some of your comments, but that is simply when they are too political and not focused on finance. And I might agree completely with your comment, but we are trying to keep the group as apolitical as possible. Anyway, let me try and show you some websites I have found here, because it's a bit about how have we come to where we are, and what are the effects. Let me see, Liam and I, if I can share my screen here. See, something like that. All right, I'll just remove the two of us again. Christian is saying, I read today that the transportation time from China to its destination in the US is 45 days. So it'll take 45 days for the effect of the tariffs to be felt in the US, and likewise for it. Yes, that is true, Christian. It is taking quite a while, and that is actually one of the reasons why some of the transportation companies in China right now, the port harbors. So they are filling up with containers right now completely. I think some of them have something like 80 or 100,000 containers just sitting there right now. And what we're looking at basically is, you remember 2020, 2021, what happened there was the world shut down. So the stuff that didn't shut down, the manufacturers that didn't shut down had a problem because they couldn't get supplies, because most supplies were from China and everything was shut down. Then all of a sudden we opened up here in the Western world, but China was still shut down, and we started to demand a lot of stuff. Then China opened up again, and there was a massive spike in container transportation. We saw Maersk and all the others, they could all of a sudden 10x their container prices because we just wanted stuff and we wanted quick. And then that annoying ship turned sideways in the Suez Canal, which basically, just such a simple thing, but it basically made the entire thing twice as bad. So all stuff had to go around the Horn of Africa and delayed everything. But what that meant was there was a massive increase in inflation because we had money, we wanted stuff, but there was not enough stuff, so we bid up prices, and transportation was insanely expensive. That is what is going to happen now, times 10 or 50 or 100. I cannot stress how much this is going to destroy the entire supply chain of the Western world and Asia for that matter. When you shut down a manufacturing unit, you cannot just start it up again one day. And even if you could, the time where you have said, we don't want your stuff, or well, they actually do. They just want to put a lot of tariff on it. Right now, we are seeing China very cleverly finding new trade partners. I don't know if you're aware of it, but back when the last trade war ran, back in 17, 18, 19, first of all, that was a tiny trade war compared to now. I'll show you that in a chart in a second. Now it's like 100 times more products that are taxed, and the taxes are a lot higher. However, what happened, for instance, was China was clever because they are not just taxing everything or putting tariff on everything. They're choosing specific areas in the United States that they know will hurt Trump's voters. And some of the voters he has in the States are the farmers. So China is just pulling away all their purchases of, for instance, soybean. That is one big thing. Poultry, meaning chicken and so on. I can't recall the number now, but I think they are buying something like half of all soybeans in the United States. They pulled some of that back in 17 and 18 and never returned. In that final art of the deal thing that Trump made last time, China promised and said, okay, we'll come back and buy your soybean, but they didn't, not the amount that they had before. That means that today, United States are supporting the farmers with $20 billion a year to keep them alive because they don't have customers for their soybeans. They have been doing that since 2018 now. So for 7 years, they have been paying $20 billion a year just for the farmers. China right now are doing something even worse. They are pulling from poultry, from soybeans. The other, was it last week or the week before? There were 500,000 tons of beef waiting to get into China from the United States.
They're on the ships already, weren't they?
Yeah, they were on the harbor,
Yeah.
but an inspector looking at it and saying, nah, it doesn't really look that good. We don't think that is good for eating. And they refused to receive 500,000 tons of beef. And they basically said, we're not going to buy any more beef from you. And the United States said, okay, well, then you can't get any beef. But then, fortunately, Russia had just built 40 meat plants very close to the Chinese border and built roads down to China. So they were ready. Today, China is buying their beef from Russia, and they are not coming back as customers for the United States. That is some of the repercussions, that is some of the ripple effects of a trade war. And that is why Liam and I are saying we are very, very, very we are very cautious about what we buy right now, because no one can predict how all of these ripples will come out. It could be that the manufacturer we are buying a share in are producing parts for some of these meat plants that are now completely out of work, and they lose their largest customers. It's next to impossible to calculate these ripple effects. So we are quite cautious about what we buy right now. Both Liam and I are mostly in cash. Aren't you, Liam? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Let's have a bit of a look here. Just a bit of history. You know, I used to be a history teacher. So this is a Visual Capitalist, and that is a fantastic site at, well, visualizing stuff from finance. And what they've done here is visualizing countries grouped by their largest trading partners. And what you can see here is first around 1960. If we look at that, you can see that Britain used to be really the largest trade partner for everyone, basically. But in the 1960s, they were declining. Sorry, Liam, but you were. Not as much as you are today, though.
No, exactly. Yeah. Well, we'll see that in a second.
Yeah, the States were upcoming, and this is import plus export. So this is how much are they trading back and forth with the different countries. Germany were fairly big. France was up here. We have what?
Is that Mexico?
Algeria, Russia, Soviet Union. I'm not even sure about this. Like Poland here. Anyway, the point is, United States was the biggest, the largest trade partner in the world. Then, if we look at 30 years ahead, here, we can see that now United States were the biggest, definitely. I can't. Where is? Oh, Britain is here.
We're still there.
Yeah, you're still there, definitely. France and Germany here, and we can see the ones that they are most connected to. China was kind of popping up. It was not basically not even on the first chart, but they were kind of popping up. Hong Kong here, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, some of the African nations they were playing with, but it was not really a competitor. Then going to 2020, 30 years ahead, this is what we see. China has basically taken over the scene. And this is 5 years ago, and a lot have happened in the last 5 years. United States is now a secondary trade partner. They're still the superpower of the world, but as you know, as I talk a lot about, it's dwindling, and they have built their entire power on the fact that the dollar is a reserve currency of the world, and it's not going to be that way forever. It's not like dollar is disappearing, but there will be, in my opinion, this is just a guess, but in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a couple of currencies that are close to equal. One of them is, of course, the digital renminbi, the Chinese digital thing. Probably some other, this is from the BRICS countries, and if you don't know BRICS by now, you should read up on it quickly. BRICS, normally it was called BRIC, and that was Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Then it was called BRICS because South Africa came on. Now it is called BRICS with 2 I's because Indonesia also joined. And actually there's something like 20 countries joining now. China is building their own banking system, their own, probably their own digital currency that is based on gold. The BRICS countries have bought something like 8,000 tons of gold over the last 5-7 years. So that is basically have a gold base for this currency. So this is what United States can't take, and what Trump is really pissed about. That is that United States is not longer the strongest trading partner. I found some really scary things here.
I'm just
Where is
thinking.
UK in 2020?
UK is there. You can see it's obvious.
Oh, it's
Oh,
here.
it
It's
stands
here.
out.
It's massive here.
Thanks for pointing that out, Christian. I'll
Yeah,
get you back at some
absolutely.
stage.
You were just on the same level as whatever they are, Dominican Republic and whatever.
And Turkey.
Yeah. All right. We can also see Russia over here. We can see India. The thing is, right now, if you're following the trade talks, you've heard that JD Vance, he's in India for 4 days. They are saying they are just having so good talks. They also have that with China, by the way, without China knowing that. But at least JD Vance is down there in India. The thing is that India is only around 2.8% of the entire trade balance with the United States. So even though it's a massive country, and of course it will be great for American companies to get in there, doesn't matter at all. What matters is China, Japan, kind of South Korea, EU, Canada, and Mexico. If a trade deal is struck with one of them, I will start to be a bit optimistic. But right now, China is basically saying, fuck off, remove all your tariffs, and then we can start talking. We want to level the playing field here. We want respect. And
it's more than that as well. I mean, China is saying that, and that's the only way they can operate, and they can actually afford to play the long game on this one, where because they're effectively they don't really have proper elections. Then what does he care about? The short term, the next few years, a bit of pain. He knows they'll come out on top eventually. But it's the other guys as well are just turning around and saying, well, actually, even if we wanted to talk, the trade negotiators on the US side of things don't seem to know what they're negotiating for. They don't seem to have a point, and that's what comes across from all the news and the press. Is that there is no plan behind it.
Yeah, there's some really weird stories coming out. Japan is openly saying, we were talking to one of you guys, but when we told him about what the Japanese stance was, he didn't seem to know anything about Japan and nothing about the trade relations between us. From Canada, we hear that while they were negotiating with one of the trade negotiators from the United States, all the phones started pinging, and that was Trump that had reversed his stance on something regarding Canada. So the negotiators from between the United States and Canada was not even in the loop on the latest development. So that is just not how you do an art of the deal or the steal or whatever it is. Anyway, as I have mentioned a ton of times, in my opinion, and I know there are a lot of different opinions here, but in my opinion, China is the strong part here. The only tool Trump seems to have is tariffs. So if you are cheating United States, tariffs. If you don't want to take immigrants, tariffs. If you are sending fentanyl over the border, tariffs. Everything is tariffs. He also said that if someone was starting their own currency and challenging the US dollars, he would put 100% extra tariffs on them. If you were trading oil with Venezuela, 50% extra tariff in secondary sanctions. So tariffs is the name of the game. Whereas China, they put tariffs on, yes, retaliatory tariffs, but they have so much else. As you know, if you've been following a bit of what I'm saying is the rare earth minerals, where China is basically sitting on 70 to 80% of the entire the usage in the entire world. If you're thinking, what is it with those rare earth minerals? Well, you don't know much. You don't have to know much about them other than without them, you're not making electrical vehicles. You're not making GPS guided missiles. You're not making strong magnets. You're not making any sort of electronics.
Jet engines.
The what?
Jet engines.
Jet engines. anything.
Computers, yeah.
Computers, Trump. United States is getting around 70% of all rare earth minerals they use from China. China have slowed down the export of those rare earth minerals from the point where they started doing that till where a couple of the weapon manufacturers and Tesla and Stellantis and some of the car manufacturers, the time from when they started to slow down until they started reporting delays in manufacturing speed, there was about 12 to 18 hours. So they don't have anything on the shelves. They need the stuff to get in, and they use it right away. Is that you having a sound, Liam?
I think, yeah. No, there's a beeping noise going on that.
All right,
my
cool.
wife's just about to go and
Just
sort
make
out.
sure it's not
I
me.
think it's our tariff alert going on.
Oh
Trump,
no!
Yeah.
So
they've issued another one.
Trump U-turn. All right, cool. No, but they have the rare earth minerals. They also have taxes. They are holding officially $700-800 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds, but unofficially more like 2.3 trillion, because they own a lot through Ireland, Luxembourg, Cayman Island stuff. So they can start dumping that. That would skyrocket the interest rates. And so they just have so many cards on their hand. And they have been preparing for this since the first trade war. And they said, we are not going through that again. We want to be prepared the next time. EU, not as much, however, a bit more.
I don't think the EU really understood quite what was at stake this time. I don't quite know why, but they're woefully unprepared. But just going back very quickly on the rare earth minerals, US is also woefully underprepared. They've had CSIS. I don't know what the department is, what it's actually called, but that's its acronym. They've had a study going on for 6 years and a program to actually get America so that they're independent for rare earth minerals, amongst other things, and it's partly funded by the Department of Defense, and they've dragged their feet for 6 years. So they've only got themselves to blame on this one as well.
I saw a very interesting look into the future, a kind of prognosis on this, and they said China is about 70 to 80% of the world's production right now, rare earth minerals. In 2040, I think it was, the prediction is that they will be producing around 90% of all rare earth minerals. So they are speeding up. So is US and EU and so on, but China is speeding up faster. So they will still be producing the vast majority of rare earth minerals in 10, 15, 20 years. And that is why I keep saying China's going to win this, because they have so many levers to pull here. So that is,
It's a very short overview on what's going on. The actual effects, as we can see, we've been staring at the PowerPoint screen. Actually, you've got it on there, haven't you? But
the one
screen very quickly again. The overall effects on the market has been quite drastic, and we've jumped up 4 or 5%, something like that, in the last few months. Let's just grab my screen back from you, if I can. So the S&P, the Nasdaq have what, up 3-4%, 4.5% in the last couple of days. So we were even further down, and we're looking at 12% down right now as we speak, 14% down in the Nasdaq. The US dollar just on the DXY, which is the trade weighted index, isn't it? Down 10% so far from its peak, which we can see in the euro exchange rate, we see in the sterling exchange rate as well, all around the world. The stock 600 is only down 8%, so Europe hasn't been too bad. We've been slightly sheltered from this, because of the money coming in from overseas, and especially coming out of the US and flowing into the European financial network. We saw today durable goods. They were supposed to have risen by 0.2% if you ignore cars.
I can just show it here.
Yeah.
Should I take over here? like this. Yeah, this is what Liam is talking about. Durable goods orders. That is in Danish, varige forbrugsgoder, durable goods. Normally, we like that to be high because that means people have confidence in the future. They are buying expensive stuff. So 9.2% up in 1 month is fantastic. However, if you look at down here, you can see durable goods orders excluding transportation, basically meaning cars. That is a big fat zero. So all the rise from durable goods are people running out buying cars that they might have been thinking about buying for a while, or they might buy them in 6 months, but now they can see that they are skyrocketing in price because of tariffs. So they're buying everything that's in there. When that is not there next month or the month after, we will see the overall durable goods orders probably go through the floor. Yeah.
Also down there, existing home sales are actually
they went down 6%.
So that's double what the analysts expected. And so,
all right.
The question is, everything's going down very, very fast, and the outcome of this is almost looking at, as alluded to it earlier on, is looking at challenging the domination of the US dollar as a safe haven, because it hasn't been this time, which is completely unlike any other problem area that we've had. Go back to 2008, go back to COVID, go back to 2001 and the dot-com boom and bust, and before that. Everyone's run to the dollar as a place of safety. But right now, because the dollar is, in people's views, they're looking to blow it up, almost looking to reduce the value of it, and that will make exports from the US more competitive. So that's another reason not to go towards the dollar. Also, where would you put your money in if you did actually transfer into dollars? Do you leave it in cash? No, you don't want to do that. So you've got to put it in something, and treasuries at the moment, which are always going to be the safest haven, are falling through the roof or falling through the floor as well right now.
We have interest rates here. A couple of days that have been falling here, but overall the treasury rates. I put an arrow in the place where that was the place in time where the market started to think Trump could win the election. Then they started to say, "Oh no, trade war," and the interest rate just hiked completely. These are the market interest rates, not the Fed interest rates. Then they went down a bit because he started to postpone some of it and said, "Oh no, we'll give it a month or so." But lately, market has realized we are not going to hold treasuries. All right, just quickly, I'll share these links in the group tomorrow, so I don't have to go through all of them. One of them that is kind of funny to have a look at is the timeline. If you have lost track of the timeline of the trade war here, you can see here the United States and China, and then they simply shown 10% on Chinese goods. They were adding a bit. They were adding a lot. They were retaliating. So here, back and forth, we can see how things were actually moving and just going completely out of hand here. 34%, some extra, 104%, and they added some, so 84. So it's just a shit show of and China quite wisely at some point said, all right, we are rising it now, but not anymore. And that was, of course, it made them seem like a bit like the adult in the room, but basically they just realized it doesn't matter if we put 200, 500 or 10 million% extra tariff on, no one is going to buy the stuff. So that is it. I'm going to share that. Another thing that is interesting is the US-China trade war tariffs up to date. This is the percentage, and this was the first trade war where United States let me see, that is the Chinese tariffs and US tariffs. So they were kind of following each other. And then Biden came in here and they were basically level. There was a bit of Biden raced a bit on the EVs and stuff, but I'm not sure if you can see it on the chart. It's very small movement here, but this is the movement in tariffs in percentages, which is insane. If we look at another chart, we can see the percentages of products that are actually tariffs between the two countries, and the percentage of the US-China trade. And I was a bit surprised, actually, that there was basically, it was almost a free trade zone before Trump started the trade war. And then he started to escalate that, and it just held through. And right now we are up in 100% tariffs on everything. This will not go well. It's already not going well. This is destroying businesses left and right. 80 to 85% of all parts in a US manufactured product today is from somewhere abroad. So there are basically not any big US brands that are just produced in the United States. Christian, you ask, will EU follow suit with tariffs if Trump do not fold? Yes, they will. They have a plan ready, and they just said, all right, we'll push it a bit as long as he is at least some sort of controlling his temper. But they have what is called the bazooka ready, which is in worst case actually can strip US companies of their patent rights in EU, and they can go in and simply ban US products. They might go in and say, all right, from tomorrow we have banned selling Teslas or whatever, Ford or something like that in EU. It's not likely they will use it, but they have it ready. They have prepared it. And last year, they made kind of that musketeer oath that we have in NATO. EU made a similar one last year, saying if another it was actually meant for China, but now they can use it for the United States. If one country, or if, for instance, China or United States are attacking one country, let's say Trump said, I really want Greenland, so I'm putting 1,000% tariff on everything from Denmark, then the entire EU will answer as one and just say, all right, we'll retaliate with the same on US products. So that is, I am fairly certain, Christian, that EU will follow suit if things go sideways. What else do we have here before we show? That is some impact. I'll share this with you. It's a lot about the Trump trade war, and this was actually the first one of the trade wars, or is that the next? No, this is what happened with last time Trump imposed tariffs, and right here he was bringing back a few jobs into the United States. Say, although the US gained some manufacturing jobs from the tariffs as appliance makers built factories in the US, they were costly. Consumers collectively paid $820,000 per job created. So the extra cost for US was actually, I think they created something like 4,000 jobs or something like that. But the price for the US as a country was $820,000 per job. And those were jobs that might have been making $40,000, $50,000 per month. Per month would be great, but per year, of course. So all research shows that tariff wars end badly. We saw it actually, not to compare in that sense, and it's not to draw the Nazi card here, but Hitler used it as a massive tool when he moved up the ranks in the 30s. We tried, or many countries tried it in the 80s, didn't end very well. If you remember from your history lessons back in 2019, a lot of economists think that the big depression could have gotten a lot less depressed if not they have introduced a massive tax package, tariffs war back then. That sent everything into a depression. So there's not really anything in the history books that tells us that a massive tariff war is a good idea. Unless, of course, we read the world-renowned Ron Barra. All right. I will. Oh yeah.
Back to this. Well,
We'll have a look at the stocks. I will show you one thing that scared me a little bit, and that is, of course, also one of the reasons why I think China is winning this shit show of a trade war. I don't know if you've heard about it before, but it's called the CWTS Leiden ranking. That is one of the major ranking ways where you rank universities towards each other. And let me just remove Liam and I here. Let me see, like this here. And as you can see here, if we're looking at the most recent numbers across all different sciences all over the world, although universities have had a minimum of 100 publications, okay, we can actually choose a bit more. Let's choose 1,000 and see what happens. That's basically the same. But what we can see here is that when we're looking at scientific impact, overall, across of all sciences, we can see that the Chinese flag is quite often used down here. We have the Harvard, which makes it not so logical that Trump is attacking Harvard right now. We have the University of Michigan, Johns Hopkins, and so on. But basically, China is owning research. If we look at specific sciences like biomedical here, health, we have Harvard here, but a lot of Chinese. If we're looking at life and earth science, we have Chinese, most of them in top 10. Look at math. I'm not sure we can find a US flag here. Oh yeah, here, MIT. And then the big heavy one that absolutely, okay, we have physical science, of course. China. And then the big one that sells no tickets whatsoever in the trade war, social science and humanities. I guess you can see where China is putting their focus on the quote unquote hard science, on math, on engineering, on these big inventions. So China is winning the knowledge game, and that is why we are losing it also in the trade war. All right, let's have a look at what could be places to invest, because that is kind of what we are here for. If we go in here, I have built my screener, and I have the long-term here. All right. Normally, when I use this, I have a screener where we're looking for high-quality stocks. Also, some high value, maybe in high momentum, or at least not completely low momentum, but I have grayed them out right now. Then we're looking for PE below 20. And the reason for that is simply in the environment where we are right now, we know that price earning will come down. And the higher your price earning is, like for instance, Tesla, Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly, some of these that have PE ratios in the hundreds, they will come crashing down the hardest if all of a sudden the market is saying we're not going to take as much risk as we normally did, so we are going to lower our PE, the willingness we are to pay a high price for the earnings. So I'm looking for stocks that are already down there because they are not quite as hardly hit. Price earning, a PEG ratio below 3. Analysts should think there is at least a 10% upside here. Market cap a minimum of 1 billion euro. Return on capital employed at least 10%. I am looking for all Scandinavian and larger European countries. And then I've added an extra thing here, and that is the way you do this. If you don't know it, you go into the screener and you add a rule. And what you do is you type sector if you want something from a specific sector. So you have sector name, press update, and then you can choose the sectors you want. And what I've done here is that I have chosen consumer defensive, meaning, let me remove us again here. It's all the stuff that you buy on that is also called what's it called, Liam? Non-cyclicals, isn't that?
Yeah, non-cyclicals,
yeah. I have used the utilities and I have used healthcare. And with these screens here, we get 7 results, and we could be a bit more lenient on some of them. But basically, we have some that are just, you could say, normal standard goods. It is utilities, meaning electricity, water, and so on, that we all need, or it is healthcare. So you can see we have GlaxoSmithKline, for instance, here. We have some food and drug, Tate. To be honest, I don't know them. I don't know if you do.
They make sugar and syrup and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
One that I'm sure many of you know is BIC or BIC. They're making those very cheap shaving tools and pens and so on. So what is basically the idea here is that people are returning to normal stuff that they need to buy, and if we are hitting a recession, a really big downturn, then they will be looking for the cheapest of the stuff.
It's also stuff that people want, and that's what Consumer Defensive is about, isn't it? Stuff that people need and they can't do without. I used to work for a big corporation called Tompkins, which was back 20 years ago, was a £4 billion company. And the first company that Greg, the CEO, bought when he was producing this massive conglomerate was a company called FH Buckle in Sheffield in London, because everyone around the world in a recession needs belts still. They need screws and those sort of things. So that was what they concentrated on, building that. Zoltan has a question. Is it realistic to have data back to 1995? So we have data for at least 2 big market sell-offs. We have data before 2000 in a lot of cases.
Just to make sure, Sultan, is it price data for the chart, or is it earnings data, the earnings report data?
Should have both, but actually I think I might have cut it off. Just before 2000, you tend to find most data sets aren't particularly good, because before 2000 there were some quite lax management of financial data and the rules and regulations of what people could put into different accounts. So there's an argument out there amongst the big data providers that actually stuff before 2000 you should really just take a much closer look at before you start using them for fundamental data.
Also, I do remember the last 5 years up to the .com crash, people were not that interested in if the company made money. It should just be named something with tech or internet,
or have a .com address somewhere.
.com address, yeah. But so yeah, I do get what you're saying.
We can certainly look at it. The caveat with this and designing, so you can adjust on the valuation tab. We can certainly go back and add some more. I think I put a cutoff of 2000 because of that reason, and because there are just certain things on the systems that will work from 2000 onwards. One of the things you need to look at as well when you're designing what we call a risk-off system, which basically tries to create some rules that says, okay, when these things all happen, a bit like our screener here, when these things all happen, we come out the market. Hans and I over the years have designed quite a few of these risk-off mechanisms, and they all look brilliant until the next crisis hits. And the last one that we sort of didn't do particularly well with on our risk-off process was the inflation scare 2 years ago, where suddenly the one sort of safe haven that we had was no longer a safe haven, because no one wanted money in bonds because inflation was going to just destroy the value in there. So with these risk-off mechanisms, they're great in history, but finding one that actually caters for the next big event is actually really, really difficult. So just be careful on that one.
And Liam and I, we thought that it was us that have made some stupid mistakes in our back testing or something like that. But we have talked to a couple of system providers that are really, really good. Some of them are on volatility trading and so on. And when you mention 2022 for them, they just shake their heads and said, "Oh, the everything crisis,"
yes.
Because everything just went sideways. And some of them, one of them has a strategy that is making 37% a year, and 22 was the worst year in history for his strategy. It just completely blew up. So it was not that it made us feel that much better to lose money in 2022, but it was basically the data, as Liam says, not many people have data, and especially not back to the 1980s. And the 1980s was the last time we saw something like this, where we first saw a very quick rise in inflation, then interest rate followed, and it was just a mess. So yeah, but the thing is, Sultan, that trying to guess or to calculate what worked back then and will it work this time, it's not a black swan event, if you know that term from Taleb, the writer. And a black swan is something that you could have never guessed, but it's more like a gray swan, because you know it has happened before, so you know it can happen again. It's just that no one knows what will trigger it, and no one knows when, and that is what makes it really bad. By the way, Taleb have really demonstrated how hard it is to predict anything, because back in 2016 he said that we should vote for Trump because how bad could it get? So I guess he didn't see that black swan coming. Yeah. Glenn, you're saying gold. Yeah, gold right now is on a tear. And there is, if we just look at it here, so USD here. I'm quite glad I have some physical gold bars in my bag safe, because they are my wife have asked if we can sell one of the ounces so we can buy this an outdoor spa, actually. So that is what you can buy for 32 grams of gold right now.
Is that an outdoor spa for your horses or for you?
I think we should buy a couple more just to buy some more horses, or sell some more. Lars is saying, as I hear it, the latest day, it's just a little positive bounce. Winter's coming, and it's about pulling out. We'll see. Yeah, well, Lars, fact is, no one knows. I have the same feeling of the market. I cannot see how this is ending well. However, I couldn't see that in 2020 as well. I thought we should down at least 20% more from here, but things were resolved. The thing, just before I go to having a look at a couple of stocks, the thing Liam and I are looking at, and we can tell from other analysts, that we know that you should not say this time it's different, because that is one of the most expensive sentences in the finance world. However, there is something different this time, at least. When we saw the crash in '87, and yes, Liam and I do remember that. Yeah. When we saw the dot-com crash, when we saw the financial crisis, when we saw the Corona crisis, they were crises and they were big, massive crashes. However, what we saw each and every time was that the largest financial power on earth, United States of America, had an active role in solving the problem. Also in causing it, of course, but they actually showed a deep concern about the entire monetary system, and they wanted to save it. This time, they are the one creating the problem. And we are sitting with a kind of a feeling, do they really want it to go on? How much why are we hearing a US president coming up with Russian talking points? Why are we, it's just such a different situation. And that is what scares me a bit. Just another thing, just very quickly now, we're at the charts.
Actually, the S&P, the current S&P sort of top that we're looking at as well is an important one to get across to people.
Yes. Quickly, the last tariff war, that was from 17 to 19 or whatever. When that really hit here in 18, we saw a drop, and then markets moved up, and then they dropped. And that was both because nothing was resolved, but also because it took a bit of a while before the effect of the tariffs really hit the different businesses. So that is what we might see this time. And this might just be the first little jump in the market here. And then we might see something like this and then this. We have no idea. It could also be that we are just turning down from here. If you have watched my video where I used this one here, this is the S&P 500, where we have the PE ratio of the entire S&P 500, all the 500 stocks, and we have the change in earnings. So right now, what we are scared of, and what we are kind of, I don't know if you could say predicting, but what we are kind of looking at is that if these tariffs are really hitting the businesses in the United States, and let's just say that some of them will still make money, some won't. But let's say that over the next month or quarters, there won't be any net gain in the earnings per share. They will make the same as they normally do, but there's no growth in that. Then right now we have a price earning of the entire S&P 500 around 25. The historical average is around 16. So if we just go halfway there, if we go to 20, and this means if people are getting a bit scared, they might still invest, but they want to have a higher interest rate. If you are paying 25 in PE for a stock, you're basically getting a 4% yield. Lars, you're saying not 28 days, but 90. Not sure what that is, Lars. But if you want a higher yield, then you might only be willing to pay a PE of 20, meaning you get 5% yield. If you are paying a PE of 15, you're getting something like a 6.5% yield. But if PE drops to 20 and earnings stay the same, which we don't think it will, but if it do, or if it does, the S&P 500, simply by saying earnings time PE, then the S&P 500 should go down to 4,000. Even if earnings go up by, let's say, 10%, but PE drops to 20, we are still having a S&P 500 in the 4,500 area, meaning we should drop another 10%. This box out here is what several of the big banks are putting in their budgets right now. That is somewhere between a 10 and 20% drop in earnings, which I think is realistic, and then somewhere between 18 and 20 in price earning, which means the S&P 500 should go down in a bear case around 2,900 and in a quote-unquote bull case around 3,600, which is not very nice to look at if you put it in something like this, because that means we should drop from here, and in the bull case we should go down here, and in the bear case we should go down here. Not in one line, of course, but just to say this will be the honeymoon fairy tale version of the drop. This will be the beast.
And this is
Lars, the 28 days.
Yeah.
Okay, now I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And this is what our theory is at the moment, and that we're working on and looking at our investments for, is that the US market, this will happen to them. Whether it's 3,600, whether it's 2,600, we have no idea. It could be 3,400 or 4,000 even, but it's still a huge, dramatic drop for the US. That has to have impacts on the rest of the world. And China, I think, are in the position where they're just saying, we can just tell our population to put up with it, and they will come out the other end stronger. The EU, on the other hand, will have quite a major recession on its hands as well.
Yeah. I saw an article the other day saying that the last 2 or 3 years, the money for consumption in the US society has come from, one, saved money from back in the Corona days where people couldn't spend any money, so they saved something. 2, credit cards, which is seeing a big increase in delinquencies right now. Trump just removed the office that controls that banks are not taking too high interest rates. Right now, they're charging an average around 18% on credit cards. Back before the financial crisis, they could charge 100, 200, 500% on credit cards. Then Obama put on this rule, and since it was Obama, of course, it has to be removed. And that means that right now it can just go through the roof. So that was savings, it was credit cards, and then it is profits from stock market. People not really making any money or maybe being fired, but they have some profits from a stock market that they can cash in on. Right now, if the market is not really giving us any cash we can cash in, then we could see a complete a private retail trade, retail consumption just disappearing, basically. So, yeah.
I was going to say we need to run through the stocks because we've kept
On the
people
optimistic
down.
note, yes.
Yeah. No, we've now thoroughly. That's why Lars is watching horror films.
Yeah.
Trying to cheer himself up.
Yeah. All right. I've picked 3 of these stocks, and I think they are fairly okay. The first one is Demapharm. Demapharm. It's a German, and of course, it's a pharmaceuticals, healthcare. And that means that it's one of these sector industry groups where we are saying, okay, people will probably still need some of the stuff from here, depending a bit on what they make. It's not a big company, 3 billion euro in enterprise value, have a good quality of 80, 1.5 in PEG ratio. Revenue just climbing slowly here. Earnings per share growth, and I've had to pick a couple of companies that are not, these freight trains. They are not. They have had some big drops. Not that they're losing money, but their earnings per share have dropped quite significantly. We can see the operating margins is fair, but dropped since 21. Return on capital employed, we've gone a bit up here. We can see that the current ratio is nice, above 1, almost 2. Interest rate coverage is not nice though, so yeah, that one dropped. That could be interest rates, could be a lot of different things. You can see the net debt has gone up. If we look at the valuation graph here, and just using the numbers, you can see here nice between 14 and 21, not massive, not 50, not 100, and you can see that we have this nice ratio that we, even though the bear case is a bit in the negative, we just want the base case to be 3, 4, 5 times as big and positive as this is negative. And we have this easily, 48 in the bull case, and analysts are expecting 35% here. Remember, when it's a small company, there might not be many analysts. I'm not even sure. Can we see this on this one? How many there are?
On the homepage. But the smaller ones, often don't have it.
They don't have that many analysts. So just be aware that when it's a small company, this one could be 1 or 2 analysts that are saying this. But it's nicely placed in the cheap zone of the PE band here. And of course, we have the trading view where we can look at it. And in here, I have placed an 8 and a 20 week moving average here. It's not like it's in a perfect trend, but if you have followed me for a while, you know that what I actually like to see is a trend that is starting to drop less massively and then starting to make equal or slightly higher bottoms here, and then this. So this is actually a very perfect long-term setup on a weekly chart. So I really like that. The TPI chart, as we can see, it is looking as if tomorrow, if everything stands as now, we are going to have green in, in all 3 of them, triple green actually. And we are coming from an oversold. So Demapharm is definitely an interesting company to look at.
4 analysts covering them.
4, okay. Well, that is not massive. Then we have a French, again a pharmaceutical here. Well, in English it's Virbac, but my French is, I have no idea how that is. They're
Starting international relations sort of problem.
all of
with
these
French.
six letters, basic, probably 5 of them are silent or something like that. So I have no idea how it's set. Anyway, 97 in quality, 1.6 in PEG ratio. Nice trending slope here in the revenue. Again, not a very big company. I didn't get many of the big companies that were that interesting. Earnings per share growth is actually quite decent. Had a bit of a drop here in 23, but some very solid, just slow and grinding rises in earnings per share. We like that. Operating margins extremely stable. Return on capital employed is stable. Current ratio nicely here, and a nice high interest coverage. So everything looks good here. Valuation, again, we have just a break even in the bear case. 25 and 51 in the 2 cases here. And if some of you are new, by the way, remember, I'm sorry I didn't point that out, but what we are doing here is basically that we are taking the estimated earnings per share and multiplying it by a price earning that in this case is suggested by the system. We can adjust them by ourselves. But here we are having a very decent case here, and not very high price earnings. Again, 14 to 21, that is absolutely decent. And analysts are looking at 27.5%, so that is good. Looking at TradingView here, not a fantastic chart. This is basically a bit of a mess. We could always draw some lines here and say, oh, there was a downtrend here, and then an uptrend, and then a downtrend. I just might want to see a bit more. It's not really bouncing from a, well, you could draw an area here and say it has been bouncing here. I would like to see just maybe a bit more bounce on this one, or simply maybe, let's see if we can move it a bit like this. So it actually goes up a bit and drops down and then starts to make a new, I do want to see the bias coming in a bit. If you're looking at the daily chart here, like this is what we are looking at. So maybe a bit of a drop more and a bit of a rise, something like that. So that was Virbac or the Buck or something like that. The last one is one you might know, Henkel. Let's see if, sorry, I have to. Here we go. All right, 71 in quality, 0.7 in PEG. You can see this is one of the bigger guys, 27 billion here. Not very much rise in, we can see it in the chart here. There is a rise, but the last 3 or 4 years have been a bit going sideways here. Not optimal. We do like to see a bit more of an increase in the revenue. If you're looking at the earnings per share growth, there was a bit of a drop here in 22 and in 20, but in 23, 24, very nice. And estimates for 25 and 26 looks good. We have the operating margins fairly stable, again, dropping a bit back here. We have the return on capital employed going up very nicely. We have current ratio above 1 and a very good interest coverage, so no problem there. Valuation, well, there's some good cases here, 4 to 56%. Analysts are saying 38. I suspect there are at least 10 or 20 analysts on this one. It's one of the big movers. You can see here price earning only between 10 and 15, and historically that is, well, they have been a lot higher. The last years here have been dropping a bit, but there should be potential for some more if they could get up here. But let's just keep it quite conservatively here, and that still gives us a fantastic case. We have dropped down, and we are deep in the cheap zone here. If we look at TradingView at the weekly here, I do like most to have a look at the horizontal boxes here that I draw in. And as we see here, this is just a nice bottom, and it's bouncing from here. a trend follower would hate this because it just dropped through here. And if we're looking at the daily charts, you can see it very nice bounce here. Maybe want to see a bit of a drop more and then another bounce, so we get a bit of a new higher bottom, higher top on the daily here. Could be something you were looking for, but also you could take a position now, half a position, a third of a position, and then have a look and see what happens. Should I go in with more? The TPI chart here is red, and that is, of course, because of this massive drop here. That gives us a downtrend. But we are coming out of a pure green and oversold here and into a green Friday, which looks good. And when I see something like this, and the thing we just saw on the trading view, I don't mind too much if we are in a red zone here. If I see this oversold turning into green and we are bouncing off a very strong support zone, I am often willing to take at least half a position. And then maybe if it drops through this and I have a fairly nearby support area here, I can take another position here. That was what I did with Novo Nordisk, for instance. And then if it turns around and continues, I just sell. Last, you asking what is the difference between the two Henkels? To be honest, I'm not.
That one's preference shares.
Oh, preference shares. Yeah, so it's the same company. It's two different classes of shares.
Yeah.
I guess that is something about how many votes you have per share, isn't it?
The preference shares, it's a long time since I looked into preference shares. The preference shares give you a slightly higher structure in the company on defaults and things like that, I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
But we can look into that at some stage. Shall I just grab the screen very quickly? And it's quite hurtful you ignored the two UK stocks on the list that you had. So,
that was completely on purpose. No, I actually looked at them and they were just not. It was not completely there.
Yeah, well, Tate & Lyle, they're quite a well-known. I thought they were bigger than that. Actually, they're quite a well-known sugar and refining company in the UK. I'm just going to switch over to the playbook page very quickly because the new guys, sometimes it's easier to get a handle on, just what the playbook says about the stock. So the playbook page says exactly the same thing as what Hans was just going through, but it gives us everything in an image format. So we can see here the quality score is 91. The earnings per share is in green, which means it's good, and you can see that the EPS is going up. The PEG ratio is well under 3, which is what we like. Revenues are going up again years, and the returns on capital, equity, and invested capital are on the way up. Most of them are green. Free cash flow is being generated, so everything looks pretty good on there. If we go to the value chart, we can see here that I've set my my bear case to a PE of 10, which the stock has bounced off of back here. And it looks like it's bouncing here as well. So when it's hit this PE band, it's been a very, very good time to buy in the past, which is one of the reasons why I just bought it up, apart from the fact it's UK and they're better than everyone else anyway. But you can see back here that that means that in our worst case scenario, we'd have a 6% drop by the end of next year, or the middle of next year, actually. It's March, isn't it? And if it's sort of slightly right, if it comes up to the blue zone again, or our base case, we get a 22% rise from here. And if it goes all the way up to the top of the trading zone here, which you can see it's bounced here, up here, maybe up here, then that's a 50% rise from here. The stock, they had a bit of an earnings warning last year. This is what precipitated the drop here in November, and basically said that their efforts to turn around and not just basically produce sugar and syrup and things like that, and actually put some healthy products into their lineup wasn't going quite as well as they expected. But they are still showing some growth, and the downturn looks like it may have been overdone. So I would say they're probably a good one to add to your watch list and look at. GlaxoSmithKline, similar. they're not quite as healthy when we look at the playbook page. So earnings per share shooting up here. I'll tell you why in a sec. Revenues are pretty solidly going up. The returns on capital, it's not quite the efficient machine it used to be, and things aren't getting any better either. Same with free cash flow generation, it's not doing quite as well. Current ratio is basically the ratio of current assets to current liabilities. That's often under 1. We prefer it over 1. It's often under 1 for pharmaceutical companies because of the makeup of their balance sheet. The dip here in earnings per share that you can see going down and then coming back up, the reason for that valley is because they had litigation against them, which will go away, but they took a couple of $1 billion hit, a couple of £1 billion hit to their earnings. So that's hit the earnings per share, but it hasn't affected the revenues, and they'll be coming back. But from a growth point of view, we can see we're not even close to the worst case scenario down here with the analysts and our bear case. But the analysts and our bear case show that we've got about 22% upside potentially if these numbers are right, and the maximum upside is about 50%. So yeah, worthwhile looking at, definitely.
All right. Well, I guess we are close to the end now, Liam. We have been.
That's a morbid thing to say at the end of this.
Yeah, I know. It's. I thought we should end on a pessimistic note. No, it's. You followed me and my morning pieces and the daily, and if some of you have sensed a tiny tone of frustration in my voice and in my writings, you are absolutely right. I see this entire situation as completely self-inflicted. I have said from day one, and it's not that I'm some sort of oh, thank you for seeing all your code, Liam.
Sorry, I just heard it. Yeah.
No, yeah, you just zoomed out.
Yep.
No, I can take over the screen if it is. No, the fact is that, as I've said a number of times, let me see here, the US economy was not great, but it was also not bad. Biden did actually a reasonable good job at correcting stuff like Obama did. He had 6-7 years after the financial crisis and actually did a good cleaning up after the financial crisis. Then, of course, COVID came, and you could always debate, did Trump destroy something there? But there was the trade war and maybe some mishandling on the COVID, but it was not entirely his fault, Trump's fault. But Biden took over a really, really wounded economy with the high inflation, high interest rates. I'm not sure if you know, but immigrants pouring in over the border actually went up quite massively just before. It's not the chart Trump likes to show, but it was actually going up massively under Trump already. And then Biden took over, actually got a handle on the immigration crisis. And the time Biden left, there was about the same monthly immigrants crossing the Mexican border every month that there was the month he took over. But he took over an immigration or a migration crisis, definitely. So what he gave Trump this time was a wounded or a semi-wounded economy. It was not healthy. It was not stable. And what I said from day one, after having read those terrible 900 pages in the Project 2025, said if they're going to do this, this is going to end so bad that I have no words for it. This is where we are now. And as Liam and I are looking at it every morning, kind of saying to each other, we haven't even just seen the start yet. Remember, we are 90 days in. we have 3 years and 3 quarters left of this shit show. This is only going to go bad. The only thing this can go less bad is if Trump says, yeah, that was a mistake. He throws Peter Navarro and the imaginary Ron Varro under the bus and says it was their fault. So now we are listening to Bessent, the Treasury, the head of Treasury, and he still don't like his policy, but he's He's well educated and he know his finance best. So it's interesting to see. Trump has painted himself up in the corner. I don't see many ways out. He may talk about, we may cut the tariffs on China in half. Well, they'll still be 70%. And China is not doing anything. It's a bit like he's overplayed his hand, like Putin invading Ukraine and thinking it would be over in 3 days because he just had the best army in the world. That is a bit where I see Trump going into this trade war thinking we are the biggest, the greatest, make America great again, and so all that shit. And then realizing now that he's simply, as I said the other day, Xi is playing poker and Trump is sitting there with his Uno cards, and he just got a Uno reverse card. So that is, I can almost not state how pessimistic I am. Though it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we can't find single good stocks, but we really, really need to be picky here, and we really need to do our homework and have a look at how could the trade war affect this. So this is a bit like Warren Buffett has said all along. He said, first of all, everyone is a genius in the bull market. So we've had a couple of years of bull market. Actually, 2022 was a bad market, but 23 and 24. And he's also saying it's when the tide goes out, meaning when the water gets low, that's where you realize who was swimming without any underwear on. That is what we're seeing now. We are seeing who is investing and trading without any clue of how to handle this situation. So we hope we are. At least we're talking a lot about it.
We are. So
all right.
I think on that note, I think we're pretty much done. I mean, for someone who at the beginning of that sentence said, I haven't got any words, he's talked an awful bloody lot about everything today. But
you should hear me when I have words. I have the best words.
Just not necessarily in the right order. So pessimistic, but there are opportunities out there and we can see them. But I think our big warning right now is, okay, if you're going to invest, if you're going to look at the value charts to do this stuff, really knock down your PE levels is the biggest thing I can say.
Earnings per share estimate.
And earnings per share. And if it still stacks up, as in SmithKline Beecham or GSK and some of the others, Henkel that we've seen, which it should still stack up, as is the defence companies as well. Then go for it, but just make sure you got that downside covered.
All right.
And on that note, we shall say good evening.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Well, thank you for your time, all of you.
And we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.